Hello and welcome back. We're a faith-based channel. We're doing a 12-part video series of the 12 disciples. I don't pretend to be a professional. I'm just a normal guy trying to read my Bible more. I created a presentation and I hope you enjoy it. This week, we're learning about the disciple
Judas Iscariot. Judas, 2,000 years later, and we still use his name as an insult, the ultimate traitor. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the reason his story terrifies us is because it's not about him at all? 30 pieces of silver, that was his price. The real question you have to ask yourself is, what's yours? Let's find out.
All right, without further ado, let's dive in.
Let me ask you something. What's your price? No, seriously. What would it take for you to compromise what you believe in? A promotion? A big enough check? The right opportunity at the right time? Because that's what this story is really about. Not some ancient villain in a Bible story, but a mirror. And if we're honest, we might not like what we see. His name was Judas Iscariot. And for 2,000 years, we've called him the ultimate traitor, the betrayer, the bad guy in the greatest story ever told. But here's what we miss when we turn him into a monster. We miss the fact that he was just a guy, a regular person who made a choice that millions of people make every single day. He sold out, not for power, not out of hatred, for money, 30 pieces of silver, a paycheck. Before we get to the betrayal, you need to understand where Judas came from. He grew up in Kerioth, this small town in southern Judea. Harsh place, rocky, hot. The kind of place where survival meant you had to be smart, had to be shrewd. He wasn't like the other disciples. Most of them were fishermen from Galilee, blue-collar guys with rough hands and simple faith. Judas was different. He was educated. He understood money, commerce, how the system worked. He was the only Judean in the group, which meant he was always a little bit on the outside. And that matters, because when you're always on the outside, looking in, when you're the smart one in a room full of people who don't think like you, it does something to you. You start to feel superior and insecure at the same time. You know what I mean? Like you're better than them. But also, why don't they see it? Why aren't you getting what you deserve? So, when Jesus showed up, when this rabbi from Nazareth started gathering followers and talking about the kingdom of God, Judas saw an opportunity, not just a spiritual one, a real one, a chance to be part of something that mattered, something that could actually change things. And Jesus saw something in him too, trusted him, made him the treasurer, put him in charge of the money. Finally, recognition. Finally, a role that matched his skills. But here's where it starts to go wrong. And pay attention, because this is where it gets uncomfortably familiar. Judas had access. Every day he held the group's money, counted it, managed it, made decisions about it. And the thing about access is it breeds temptation. A few coins here, a little there, easy to rationalize. I deserve this. I'm smarter with money than they are. They don't understand practical needs like I do. The Bible tells us he was stealing from the money bag. Not all at once. Just gradually, the way most of us compromise. A little bit at a time until we don't even recognize what we've become. You know what's crazy? There's this moment in the Gospel of John where a woman named Mary takes this expensive perfume worth a year's wages and she pours it all out on Jesus' feet, just lavishes it on him, and Judas loses it. He says, "Why wasn't this sold and the money given to the poor?" Sounds noble, right? Sounds like he cares. But John tells us the truth. He didn't care about the poor. He wanted that money to pass through his hands so he could skim from it. And here's what breaks my heart about that moment. Judas watched someone give extravagantly, wastefully, beautifully, and all he could see was the transaction. All he could calculate was the loss. He couldn't understand that some things transcend economics, that love doesn't operate on a balance sheet. How many of us are like that? How many times have we judged someone's generosity as wasteful, criticized someone's sacrifice as impractical, reduced worship to a cost-benefit analysis? But there's something deeper happening with Judas. See, he didn't just want money. He wanted Jesus to be something he wasn't. Judas was waiting for Jesus to overthrow Rome, to claim political power, to establish an earthly kingdom. He'd invested 3 years in this, and Jesus kept talking about dying, about serving, about losing your life to find it. That's not what Judas signed up for. The disappointment turned into disillusionment, and disillusionment turned into something darker. So he made a choice. He went to the chief priests, the religious leaders who wanted Jesus dead, and he made a deal. 30 pieces of silver. You know what that was? That was the price of a slave. The compensation if your ox gored someone's servant. That's what he valued Jesus at. Not even a significant amount, just enough. Enough to make it worth his while. Enough to cut his losses on this failed investment. And this is what should terrify us. Judas didn't betray Jesus in a moment of passion or hatred. He did it for a paycheck. He did it because he was disappointed and wanted to salvage something from the wreckage of his expectations. How many people today betray their values for a salary, compromise their integrity for a promotion, sell out what they believe in because the price was right? We act like Judas was uniquely evil, but maybe he was just uniquely honest about what the rest of us do in smaller ways every single day. The betrayal happens in a garden, Gethsemane. Judas leads an armed crowd to arrest Jesus, and here's the detail that makes it so cruel. He identifies Jesus with a kiss. A kiss, the traditional greeting between a rabbi and his disciple. He weaponized intimacy, turned affection into a signal for violence. And Jesus calls him friend, not sarcastically, but with genuine sorrow. Friend, do what you came for. Think about that for a second. In the moment of ultimate betrayal, Jesus still called him friend, still saw him as more than his worst moment. But Judas couldn't see it, couldn't receive it. He'd already decided who he was, and then it all falls apart. Jesus is arrested, condemned, and suddenly Judas sees what he's actually done. This wasn't political maneuvering, this was murder. He'd killed an innocent man, the only truly innocent man he'd ever known. The weight of it crushed him. He ran back to the chief priests, tried to return the money, screaming, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." And you know what they said? What is that to us? That's your responsibility. He'd been used, and now he was alone with his guilt. The money that seemed so important hours before now burned in his hands. He threw it down in the temple. The coins scattered across the floor, and he walked out into a darkness he couldn't escape. Here's what we need to understand. Judas felt remorse. Deep, crushing remorse. He admitted his sin. He tried to make it right, but he couldn't forgive himself. He couldn't believe that grace could reach even him. So he went out and hanged himself, ended his life in a field that would forever be called the field of blood. He died alone, believing he was beyond redemption, never knowing that 3 days later, the man he betrayed would rise from the dead, offering forgiveness to everyone, even to those who crucified him. And here's the gut punch. Here's what should shake us to our core. Judas threw the money back. He felt the weight of what he'd done. The remorse was real. The guilt was unbearable. He knew he'd betrayed innocence for silver. So here's my question. Do we? Do we feel the weight when we compromise? When we choose money over integrity? When we sell out our values for the right price? Or have we gotten so good at rationalizing, at justifying, at numbing ourselves that we don't even notice anymore? See, we've spent 2,000 years calling Judas a traitor, making him the villain, the bad guy, the one we'd never be. But what if he's not the villain? What if he's the mirror? What if his story is so disturbing because we see ourselves in it? The greed, the disappointment when God doesn't meet our expectations, the slow compromise, the moment when we realize we've traded something sacred for something that suddenly seems worthless. Corporate executives who destroy lives for quarterly profits, politicians who abandon principles for campaign donations, regular people who betray trust for personal gain, the friend who sells out a confidence for social currency, the employee who compromises ethics for job security. We are surrounded by the spirit of Judas, and if we're honest, it lives in us too. Every time we choose comfort over conviction, every time we put a price tag on what should be priceless. But here's the difference between Judas and Peter. Peter also betrayed Jesus, denied him 3 times, swore he didn't even know him. But Peter came back. Peter accepted forgiveness. Peter let Jesus restore him. Judas couldn't. Judas died believing his sin was bigger than grace. And that's the real tragedy. Not that he betrayed Jesus, but that he couldn't believe Jesus would forgive him. So maybe the question isn't whether we're different from Judas. Maybe we're not. Maybe we all have our price. Maybe we all compromise. Maybe we all betray in big ways and small. Maybe the real question is, what do we do after? Do we throw the money back? Do we feel the weight? And most importantly, do we believe that grace is bigger than our worst moment? Or do we, like Judas, walk out into the darkness, convinced we're beyond redemption? Judas Iscariot, the man who sold Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, the man who had everything and lost it all, the man who walked with God and still chose betrayal, the man who felt crushing remorse but couldn't accept crushing grace. He's not just a historical figure, he's a warning, he's a mirror, he's the question we have to answer every single day. What's your price? And when you realize what you've traded, will you believe that forgiveness is still possible? That's the story of Judas. And God help us, it might be our story too.
So I hope you have enjoyed this presentation as much as I have enjoyed creating it. If you want to learn more, head to iamphantasma.com and drop us your email if you would like to stay in touch. Once again, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.